Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us on the What's New in Bevica webinar we've got for you today. So I'm joined by Jason and Charlotte. So for those that you don't know, Charlotte's part of the Bevica team. So she gets involved on day-to-day, making sure the product does what it needs to do. And Jason heads up our new Change Hub at TVT. So looking directly after customers and change requests and things that are added to systems. So today really is about us just going through the things that we like about what's coming in the new version, things that have piqued our interest. So it's a chit chat from us. If you have any questions, if you can put them in the Q&A section, Nikki will have a look, and if we can reply while we're doing different sections, we will. If not, we'll try and wrap them up at the end or answer them and reply to people later on. So that's what we plan to do. I think, Charlotte, you've got the first bit.
I do have the first slot. Yeah, very excited to be here today. My first Bevica webinar. So yeah, looking forward to speaking to you all. So my first bit I'd like to talk about today is sample orders. So I'm just going to share the screen up here and we'll do a little demo. So can we all see my screen? Well, I'll have to ask you guys.
Yep.
Can we see my screen? Yep.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so sample orders. So previously with sample orders, it was quite fiddly. So we're kind of changing things on the lines, changing posting groups, manually putting it down to a zero price. And so we've decided to put a little change in here to make it a little bit more automated for you. So in the Bevica setup, we now have a sample price type field here, and you can choose whether you want your sample price to be a zero price or 100% discount. The outcome's the same. I think really the big difference is just what will show on the line. So whether you see the price and then 100% discount or just no price at all. We also, alongside that, in our sales document type codes, have a nice little item general product posting group default here. So if we just have a look at my sample order type, I've got my sales identifier sample, allowing my zero price, and it should change my product posting group to samples. Alongside this setup, we've also got a kind of blanket default that the line will default to base unit of measure when doing a sample order. So if we just do a quick order to show you what that looks like in reality. Okay, so we have a sales document type. So I'm going to put my sales document type in as sample, which will then put the identifier on in the background. And if we just come down to the lines here, pop an item on, and my quantity, and we can see here it's obviously defaulted that to my base unit of measure there. So usually that would be your sales unit of measure, which usually is case, sometimes it is always bottle, and it's changed my product group there to samples, and I've got zero price. Just to show the difference between the zero price and the 100% discount, because it does look slightly different on the line. We'll change that up here and we'll go to the discount. Refresh my line. And then here, so we see now, so previously that was blank. So if you have a zero price, it will just leave it blank. If we go for the discount, it will then show the 100% discount. So it's quite a nice feature to make that a little bit more automated rather than having to remember to go and change all these fields. And so, yeah, so that's our sample orders.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice because the new sample order lets you operationally just quickly and create sample orders at zero value and get them out, but also financially with the manipulation of the product posting group and the way that potentially it puts 100% discount, you can then financially report on it much more easily than maybe if it was just a straightforward order and you put zero price on it. So hopefully we're capturing both operationally and financially a nice improvement there. So yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think is in our industry, it's quite common, isn't it? Those sample orders. So yeah, it's nice to have an automated way. Sorry, Jason.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, you know, I know people in the finance team will be very happy to have consistency because I'm no doubt when it's these sample orders are given to the customer service team, sometimes there's like different values that go through. So yeah, I'm sure finance team would love this as well.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to show you was on packaging, so EPR. So I think there's been a lot of discussions about this recently. It is creeping up on us, and we do actually we're planning to book in a webinar for EPR as a whole and how that should look and some tips on how to manage it. But in the latest release from Microsoft, they've done their own kind of packaging and exercise journal. So I thought it would be quite nice to show you what that looks like, and just kind of talk about that as well. So Microsoft have put it under the sustainability bracket. So within that, there's other features around CO2 calculations. And yeah, so we can see it all here. So to be able to see this, you do need to turn on the sustainability in the feature management, and there is a little bit of setup. So I won't go through the full setup, but I will just show you here what kind of options you've got. So in the sustainability, we've got things around emissions, water, waste, and the kind of types of tracking we want to do, and then just your usual kind of number series. But once that's turned on and it's all been turned on the setup, you will see this sustainability tab on the item card. It's quite nice because you can kind of put things like default GL accounts for sustainability. You have your sustainability general ledgers and pop in all your details here. So for packaging, we have an EPR category, and there's some options here, but obviously I've gone for packaging and the material composition. So I've set up a few just to show for an example, but if we have a look at some of these, so show me my details. So this is one I set up just as an example for a 75 cl bottle that is glass. The idea being that I can use this on potentially multiple items. So I've got my material type number, what the weight is, unit of measure, what my packaging fee should be, and you can add multiple different materials here. So I've kind of done my bottle and did a rough calculation of what the cardboard would be divided by 6, just to give you an example. So once that's been set up and applied to the item card, it will give you a total EPR weight and an EPR fee per unit. So that then sits on the item card. Once it's been calculated once, it will update in real time. So then once we've got that then starts to appear on sales and purchase documents. So you might have had a sneaky peek at it when I showed you samples just now, but if we do another order just so you can see what it looks like on the lines. So we can see over here we have a total EPR fee now of 882, which has taken it from the item card here of the 147 per unit, times that up by 6. So that's keeping track for you of what the total packaging would be for this order. Once we post that, and there's a few other examples, some I've made earlier that we'll see on the journal as well. So in the background, it's keeping track of all of these. And then we have something called the exercise journal. And there's different types of exercise journals. So we've got this one, EPR is my packaging one, but there are other types of exercise, which I'll talk about in a little while. You can then calculate, and it brings in all the postings that we've done. So these are a few I've done earlier, but this one was my one I did just now, that one down the bottom. And it keeps track of what the material breakdowns are, what the weight is, the emissions, and packaging. So this is quite a nice way to keep track. What it's not doing is making any entries, any GL entries for you. But when we register the journal, and we can now go to our transaction logs, and we can see here again some I've done over the course of a couple of weeks or so, and it's basically they call it a transaction log because it's not creating any kind of journal postings in your GLs, but it is keeping a log of who your customer is, what your item is, and what the document type is as well. So if there was other sorts of documents, and where have we got here, the total weight, your emissions. So this is great for reporting, I think, and this is something we've discussed internally as well, that from the reporting side, it is really nice to have, particularly having it at that customer level as well. I think is quite useful.
Yeah, I think it's a case of one of the cases of Microsoft coming up with some new functionality and improving it over time, let's say. So I think there are things that can be improved, and we're looking at doing some extras. So for example, it doesn't know if you've sold by the glass. So for EPR, that's significant or important. So it doesn't know about that. It doesn't do postings in real time, like Charlotte said. It doesn't post to the GL, and it does it all batch process rather than real time. So at the moment, our solution for EPI is a combination of this and then maybe retros or distribution cost management that'll deal with the financial side. But we're hoping later on this year to have a roundtable or a webinar on EPR where we can get people's suggestions on how we can kind of bring all those things together to make it a bit slicker. I don't think it'd be a lot of work involved, but definitely something on the roadmap for this year.
So I think the other feature they've kind of added is, and it's the excise, it comes under the excise piece, so it's still part of the excise journal, and they've put in some excise VAT types. You know, I've set up a few here as an example, but it doesn't really, it's not excise in the way that we would think of excise as excise duty. But they are starting to lay that foundation for further development. So this is why the word excise, it's a bit, yeah, it's not excise as we know it. And if we just go back to that excise journal, there is, depending on the type of batch you've set up, there is this kind of generate excise tax entries. So it's a start. They're laying down the foundations, I think, for the different industries to be able to calculate excise tax, duty, import taxes, things like CCT.
Yeah, it's very generic. It's very generic at the moment.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we can make use of it. At the moment, I think what we have is more specific, but we might make use of it in the future if it makes sense.
So I think that was all I wanted to show on the excise and kind of packaging side of things.
Yeah. So over to me now. I've got something that is new to the product and is pretty much fully formed, unlike the sustainability where they've added bits and pieces over time. So it's the quality management module. Hopefully you can see the screen. So this is all about testing stock either on receipt or stock you have in the warehouse or someone else's warehouse that is looking after it for you. So you can do tests, you can set up inspections and so on. And I think for a first release, it is actually really, really good. I can see us using it completely out of the box. So when you get your hands on it, if you run your own warehouse, I think it's a no-brainer to start using this for checking things as they come in. If you're using a 3PL, there's no reason why you can't create these tests and then ask the 3PL with your information to go and test things, and then you can update them. So there's a scope there for definitely using it from kind of different ways. So I'm just going to go show you a couple of the screens. So it all starts with quality tests. So these effectively are the individual things you want tested or looked at when stock arrives or is in the warehouse. And I've got a couple of examples to show you. So some of them are just tick boxes. Some of them are lookups that people have to populate. You can put just text. So someone has to write something. And then these ones here are an example where you have to put a number and it has to validate between two kind of minimum and max. So there's a lot of different ways, different types of tests that you can create. Actually, so we could go back into, oops. If I go back, then once you've got your tests, you create your inspection templates. An inspection template effectively is a group of tests. So if I look at this one, so here, this is a test that I might want to do to stock when it arrives. So I'm checking for, is the packaging okay? Has someone taken a picture? I'm asking someone to type in a description, maybe like a second validation that it's all okay. And for some reason, I've decided that I need to put the code of someone in the office that maybe asked me to do this or it needs to be sent to. So this is the setup. You can have as many of these as you like. And then behind them, if you're automating it, you can put in rules about how these tests are triggered. And they are triggered by postings or creation of some sort of record in the software. So here I've got two examples. I've got a purchase order. So when I receive a purchase order and the location is blue, it'll trigger this test for every item that's on that purchase order. Or if I'm running my own warehouse, when I create a warehouse journal line, if it's in the silver location and it's going into a quality bin, a quality test bin, it'll create a creation. So the scenario there is I might have general stock, I'm creating a movement, I'm putting it into QI bin, and automatically as part of that process, it'll create the test and move the stock into that bin, ready for someone then to kind of match the two together and do the test they want to. So that's the way you can automate it, but you can also just manually create an inspection. So here I've got create inspection button, purchase line to inspect. So it's asking me which purchase order line am I interested in. So let's pick that one, say okay. I can put some other filters. And there it's created a test against that purchase order for that particular product with those individual tests. And then the user would come here and do the individual yes, no checking and so on. I'm going to do, so that's a manual way of doing it, which is quite nice, but I'm going to show you an automated way. So I've done a little bit of preparation. So I have a movement worksheet where, like I said, I'm moving stock from general area of the warehouse into my QI bin. So I create movement, say yes to that. And then the next thing in the warehouse, just standard warehouse operations. I would go to my inventory movements. So this is someone in the warehouse with their handheld, with the barcode scanner saying, I'm moving stock into my QI bin. I need to autofill. I register it. So as part of that registering, it does all obviously the standard movements, but then it's created my inspections. So you see it created these two here. And this is just a long history list of all the inspections that you have. So if I go into this inspection, it's asking me to check the status of is it any good? The packaging, is it okay? I can put a description. I don't remember what this one is. Vintage. Like I said before, I'm not sure why, but Richard is interested in this for some reason. And then I can take a picture. So if you've got a mobile device or a tablet, you can come in here, you can take a picture and it'll just recognize that automatically. I'm just going to import a picture from my desktop. So then it stores it again against that inspection if in the future then you want to kind of refer back to that. And once you've finished, if everything is passed, I just need to say I took the picture. So I said yes to that. Before I do that, you can create an inspection report. So this might be something that you send to someone. So these got all the details of what you actually want to be tested. And once the inspection has been completed, you can create a certificate. Now, these are, as normal comes out of BC, quite dry documents. They can be tidied up and made to look a bit better if there's something that you might want then to send to customers as proof that things have been checked or stored internally on SharePoint or something. So once you've finished the order, the inspection, you click finish, and that's this one in this case is passed, and then you can potentially move the stock back into your general stock area. You can re-inspect if it failed the first time and you need to do some work on it. You can re-inspect, you can open it and review things again. You can have as many re-inspections as you like. So I think it's really good start. So I'm hoping that people will start using it. And we do have a webinar on this later in the year where we hope to get some kind of more use cases from people that we can go into a bit more detail and try things out. It's a bit difficult just doing it purely from our imagination, but getting some real life examples would be really good to try it out.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I can, sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I can see quite a few uses for this. You know, some things I've struggled with in the past is pallet size, getting the wrong size pallets and keeping track of which suppliers sent you the right pallet, who sent you a euro. That was one thing that definitely came to mind when I saw this. But also just general inspections, if you're getting quite a lot of complaints from customers about a certain wine, being able to, you know, rather than having to do a sample order, go downstairs, get it picked, you can actually just create the quality inspection template and get someone downstairs in your warehouse to have a look at it. So it definitely does streamline that process, I think.
This could also be used if you're tasting the wine. If on a Friday, someone in the warehouse has to pull out 20 or 30 bottles to do some sort of QI tasting, you could use this and really nicely keep a track of what was tested and when it was tested. So yeah, that's good. Okay.
Sounds like a job for me. I like that one. There's a quick question by someone about this. Okay. I think you did say it, Claudio, that it's possible on a mobile device, especially with that photo upload. I think you did say it was just a standard BC thing, isn't it? You can obviously use a browser, tablet, mobile device. That's the beauty of it all being on SaaS.
Yeah, that taking a picture is not specific to the quality management. That's across all the screens. If you have an attachment on the side, you can use a mobile device to take a picture or attach something. So yeah. The second bit on my list was a quick run through of the new stuff that's come out from Shopify. So as ever, Microsoft are adding things to BC from a Shopify point of view, as I think probably a lot of pressure from partners like us and customers, because it was quite bad to begin with, but now I think it's really working well and nicely, and it's something that I'd suggest or recommend to everyone. So the changes are kind of in three different areas. The first one is about currency. So Shopify orders now can come in different currencies, which they didn't before. So if you're dealing internationally, I think that's useful. Then the second one is more about the ability to create Shopify or to synchronize Shopify products more consistently between BC and Shopify. So in the past, we only had a couple of ways of doing it, basically unit of measure, variant, and item. But now we can use things like attributes and pull in more information from one into the other. So they're trying to merge the two systems a bit more. I think in the past, people had to create the items just as a technical thing, and then go into Shopify and create all the attributes, all the tags, and all the pictures. With this, you've got a bit more flexibility there, although I don't think it'll ever be as good as doing it completely in Shopify, because that's not what BC does. So there's work there on variants and attributes. And then custom collections on Shopify can be brought in as attributes. So custom collections are manual attributes, if you like, that you put into Shopify. And they're used for filtering and searching as users on the screen. And those can now be brought in automatically as attributes, so then you can filter and search in BC. Again, just I think trying to merge the two things a bit more closely. So that's what Microsoft have done. So we are also updating the connector, or the Bevica connector. So Nicola, part of the Bevica team, has done a lot of work on refunds. So something that the standard connector doesn't do in a lot of detail, especially on the financial side of refunds. So we've done a lot of work on that, and then specifically for point of sale. So on Shopify, you can set up online and point of sale, and we've done some work there. And then we're working with one of our customers who already does duty-free orders on Shopify and brings them in. So we're using some of their knowledge, very kind of them, to be able to kind of release a version where we are happy that we can bring in duty-free orders from Shopify into Bevica, just to make it a bit more useful. It involves a little bit of work on the Shopify side, because there's some work there to make sure the orders are created correctly in the first place. But once that is done, we can bring them, or we will be able to bring them into Bevica and process them as just a standard Shopify order, just the fact that they are duty free. But yeah, some nice stuff there. Jason, I think you were going to show us a few bits and pieces.
Yeah, yep. Let me just share the right screen. So hopefully just confirm you can see a slide. Yep. I haven't got too many slides, so I just thought maybe not everyone is aware that there is we have a app that just helps out with queues, because it's one of those areas that historically customers will say, yeah, it's great that we've got all these profiles that sort of come out of the box, but they're a little bit fixed out of the box. So historically in the past, as part of an implementation, you may have needed some sort of development. I need to speak to someone at TBT, need to sort of create some tiles that are a bit more specific to our needs. So to address that sort of demand and to make it reasonably generic and empower you as users, you can create some of your own queues. This is what this app attempts to do. So that's the challenge. That's the part of why we've done it. And then solution points are, you don't need us in the loop. So once it's installed, you can then assign it to different users. So let me just throw up some software just to sort of show you. So you would have it, so it just embeds itself into the standard profile, your role center. And that's actually here on my screen. And I've set these up and I've assigned it to a particular profile. So it's one sort of question we get asked, like, can we have different queues for different profiles? The answer is yes. So I've created my own profile here, which I could assign to different users, and then that particular profile is just using a particular custom queues. So you could have there's no limit on how many different groupings of queues that you have. So that's just that's the first question. So this is not appearing on every single profile across the whole company. It's you do get to choose which profile it shows on. But I thought, well, because it's a Bevica webinar, I sort of threw in a little bit of Bevica data here. We've got agency unpaid reserves. So as you drill down, you can see the information. I thought, well, why don't we just sort of show, maybe add in another queue to sort of go through the motions of what you would need to do. So I'm just going to clear the filter temporarily. So I'm going to, let's choose on trade, and maybe I'd want another queue tile on my profile to actually see the on trade numbers here for unpaid reserves. So where would I go to do that? I normally would start in a activity group, or you could also search for easy custom queues as well. It's called activity groups because just naming conventions, these are sort of activities of a profile. So we try to keep the language the same as what you would find in sort of Business Central documentation. And here's my Bevica Ops. And you can see there the caption that you see on your profile is actually just mirrored here. So that's again, you can sort of show that how you like. And here's I've got my 3 queues here. I can just drill down to that. So this is where you sort of set up the queues. And also as someone who's in the process of creating queues, you get to see the results straight away without actually going back to the profile and seeing if it works. So let me add a new one. I was going to say, I think it was called on trade UPRs. Maybe I should keep consistent with my casing. First of all, you've got a calculation type, count. So you saw this nice sort of block count number, but we do also have an option for sum. So on sometimes when you look at a profile, you'll see like an extended queue tile. They actually show like a financial number, and that's sort of the difference between the two options there. You'd go and choose your source table ID, but if you don't know the number, that's okay. You can let's go and do a search and then locate it this way. But I'm going to cheat and say I'm just going to type it in just for the sake of speed, and it confirms that this is probably the right table I'm on. Also gives me an immediate sort of result to say yes, there's roughly 17 unpaid reserves. I can't drill into this quite yet because it doesn't have a connected drill down page ID. Now some tables will actually suggest the drill down page ID. Some tables don't, which is okay. That keeps it reasonably flexible, but I'm going to come over here and just say I know it's that one. And again, I'm just, for the sake of speed, you can go and search which table that is. And also, in case people don't know, if you go straight to unpaid reserves, if I just go straight to here and do a search here and Alt Control F1, hopefully we all are lovers of that keyboard combination, because this actually does tell us exactly which table and also which page we're on. So that's makes it so much easier to build your queues if you just write down that information. I'm just waiting for that to go back. And over here, this is, I need to sort of, set a filter, right, to on trade. So I need to filter this data set. So this is where you come and do it. And then here I'm going to go and do my new, and I'm going to click on open. And I think it was the UPR code on trade. And if I just hit F5, that just refreshes everything here. And I can see there that's my on-trade UPRs. I've got 4. I can just test it quickly. Yes, it looks like the right sort of data. And then if I just come back out, I'll give a little warning to say you might need to sort of refresh your browser because the information doesn't always come on immediately because just the sequence of events. So I'm just going to go Control F5 just to sort of get a fresh pull of my activity group. And then there it is there. I've got my UPRs on trade. So it was just a bit of a flash demo. We do have other sort of features. I don't know if you've sort of detected like my sales orders, team sales orders. And if I click in here, and I've just got I'm showing my filters here, but if I just had that, and it is actually pre-filtered, and then it's pre-filtered to these salespeople. Now that's dynamic in filtering. So the app itself has something called easy queue filter text. And what does that mean? So it means that you have to excuse my user ID because it's just the way we see ourselves on these demo systems. But this is myself, and I can use a feature to basically every time I'm using this particular queue, then these values mean something to a particular filtered list. So we've got a technique to actually put in a certain what you call it's called a token. If you go and search for it in BC documentation, it's a filter token, and then that can then convert to say, okay, I know what that means. It means AH pipe ED. And also we can use it for my easy SP code as well, because that's one of the challenges that sometimes have. But when you log in, I want to see my orders, but you as a user is completely different to your salesperson code. So that's quite a nice sort of additional feature. And the benefit is these filter tokens you can use anywhere in the software. It's not just for the queue solution. So if you do find other lists that you'd like to sort of apply those filter tokens to, they're there to use. The other benefit, just if I just go back to the slide, the last point here. So there's, what does it, I suppose, does it cost anything? It is free. We sort of allow up to 2 queues. So if you've got 2 queues that you want to sort of bed in, then yeah, sure, go and install it. We sort of start, if you start to use it a bit more, then there is a fee involved, as with any sort of subscription app. But you can come talk to us. But try it out. Try it out in the sandbox. Try it out in production if you like. Again, for 2 queues, might be worth your while.
We've had a question here, Jason. Can
Yes.
you deploy the updated queues to all users at once?
It is so as soon as you install it, I don't know how to maybe answer that question, but if you install it, obviously it's available as a solution for the whole, BC system. But as long as because it's profile driven, as long as those users are connected to that profile, then they would see it immediately, the results.
So they'll see it on their role center effectively.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you just set it up once on the role center, then everyone that's using it can see it. So yeah, the answer is yes, I think.
I think the answer is yes, but there's always a caveat, because obviously it depends where the user is assigned to. As long as the user is assigned to that profile, and that's why it's sort of profile driven. But yeah, good question, thank you. So I'm going to sort of move on to sort of next slide here, because I've got a couple of more slides that are, I think, just to sort of making sure that people are aware of the new features that have come out in Business Central, and obviously for Bevica. Permissions. So let me just come over here. So there's the challenge was, I think, the auditing permissions can be quite difficult. So if you are trying to sort of say, well, who has access to these particular setup tables, or who has access to maybe certain sensitive data sets. So Microsoft have sort of come up with a solution called the permission overview. So let me just slide across and I've got it preloaded. There's a reason why I got it preloaded rather than sort of searching for it, because when you first run it, it can take about a minute to build. So not great for demos, but because obviously it's trying to pull all the information together about all the permission sets and all about the users, and also the permission sets and what tables and what table data and so on. So then it sort of gives me this result, and I've just plugged in, hey, I'm sort of quite interested in what roles have any sort of permission access to my general ledger setup, because that's quite a key table, if you're sort of working in finance. And you can then sort of, scroll down the permission sets and say, well, okay, look, I can see here that D365 setup is something that we do use to assign, and then here I can see my users. And again, we apologize for the not human way of we call ourselves here. So there's a Claudio there, there's a Charlotte here, and there's a Jason here as well. But that sort of does tell me who's got access to do these activities. So I know that some users can only update that particular company. There's also another company here that has access. If you just read across here, they can read, insert, modify, and delete. So it's a nice sort of it's enhancing the way you can audit, and because it's becoming more and more important these days.
I thought this would be really useful when you're doing testing, you just set someone's permissions up and they're trying to, I don't know, post a purchase order, and you don't have permission to insert to table, whatever it is.
Yeah, precisely. Yes.
With that table number or table name, you come here, you put it in there, and it'll tell you what permission you could give them to solve that particular problem.
Yeah, and importantly, obviously, I'll just expand it out, but it also, gives you sometimes they might have to modify, right? So it might sort of throw up a modify position. You don't have permission to modify. But yeah, absolutely.
So you could just come down here
important.
and pick the appropriate permission set that makes more sense for them. Whereas in the past, it was a real pain to try and figure it out.
I've done this in the past in a previous life, and I think one thing that sprung to mind for me is, during busy periods, we would often get salespeople or people from other departments to help raising orders, and it was a real kind of have a list of who I've given the permission to, who do I now need to go take it off the next day, whereas this is actually, it just gives it to you in a really nice, easy to view screen. So
it's just another
it's nice.
It's just another tool, rather than sort of get to like, where do I start? Well, start here, so because I know it can be quite sort of, I need to stitch together users, I need to stitch together permission sets, and then just, I think, just for admin, users of BC, just start here. This is a good place to start. Yeah, so that's that one. And just what else do I have here? That was just in case that it took too long to load. I just thought I'd just throw in a screen grab here. But obviously with Bevica clients that we have on the webinar here, that obviously items and inventory are quite important. And just in case it's sort of slipped, that people didn't know, there is Microsoft have always had this sort of approval template for a lot of the journals, but they never sort of extended to inventory. So finally, they've actually got an update, and they've added a way to at least have some sort of approval process if you choose to implement it. To obviously it's because it's quite a critical part of your business, about writing off stock or maybe adding on stock for your journals. So this affects the item journals, and also affects physical inventory journals. There are some other journals as well. If you use requisition worksheets, that's also been added as well. So obviously I sort of highlighted 2 journals here, but if you just look at the screenshot here, it only says 1. The reason is because behind the scenes, it is just an item journal for both of those. So if you're doing item adjustments, it's an item journal line, and if you're doing physical inventory journals, it's an item journal line too. So that can manage both. The other journal that uses item journal line is also revaluation journals, but they didn't seem to add the important request approval. So maybe that's to come, but you can see there at least they're making the right moves to at least make it more consistent in terms of journals and workflow approvals.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think I've just got one more just to sort of, if anyone is online and sort of is curious about more of the integrations and what's going on, but I thought just throw up a couple of sort of statements here. So there's been a lot of love for adding in more ways to get access to the data of Business Central. It's quite impressive. There's 36 new document APIs, and there's also going back to your EPR and sustainability. There's a lot of access to that as well, API data, and some of it is a read-only, so it's not a two-way. So think about reporting when it's sort of read-only, and part of the reason is to just enhance other features that are coming online with Microsoft and Business Central, which is the Power Automate, Power Platform, but also Copilot Studio. So obviously it's we haven't talked about much about AI on this webinar, but we have to sort of throw it in there. That's this is just helping agents if we go down that path. And it's just it gives you more flexibility of what agents can do and help with certain tasks and processes.
Yeah, we talked more about Copilot on the What's New in Business Central webinar we did a couple of weeks ago. That's on our website. If anyone wants to go and listen to that, we did talk more about the topic of the moment, which is Copilot and AI.
And before I hand back over to you, Charlotte, I just want to go back to the tiles. One thing I just forgot to mention, that if you do want to install the tiles, you just go to AppSource from our marketplace, Microsoft. You can go and install it there. You can also do it from typing marketplace inside BC. It'll come there. If there are there is a Bevica profile that sort of comes with Bevica Essentials. So there is a connector app. Just let us know. There's no charge for installing the connector app. So I just sort of want to make sure in case someone sort of goes and installs it. But yeah, just let someone know. We can just install that Bevica connector app for you for the queues solution.
Cool.
Right, back to you, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. So one of the things we noticed is quite a lot of the Microsoft changes are around payables, purchase invoices, purchase orders, and there's a strong feeling that's there to support the agent, right? Because you've got your payables agent. So what can we now do within the standard code to help that agent do what we want it to do? So a few of the features I wanted to show you was so previously on a purchase invoice, when you're getting your lines, you could usually only get receipted lines. They've now opened this up so you can get purchase order lines as well. So I've just got a purchase invoice here. I'm going to go to get order lines. And here you can see, so I've got some orders here where there's quantity outstanding still. So that's still on purchase order, it's not receipted. But I can also pull in my receipted lines. So if we just bring everything on just to show you what that looks like, maybe not that one because it's from a different location. And then that comes onto the order here. And we can see, do I have my received quantity? I've not got it showing on the line, but some of that is from a receipt and some of it's from an order. Another cool feature they have added is something called matched order lines. So once you've pulled everything on, you can click onto this matched order lines, and then you've got a really nice overview of the order number that it's come from, the order line number. If there is a receipt, it tells me here, and I've got more detail about my purchase receipts there. So that's quite nice. It's quite nice if you're pulling on loads and loads of lines, just kind of get them all on and then have a look at the summary. Something else, which I think is really cool, they have a receipt on invoice flag now. So this is actually driven from the purchase order. So here's one I made earlier. And it is a flag on the purchase order, which sits down here under the invoice details to have receipt on invoice. So when that's toggled on, once you post your purchase invoice, it will also post the receipt for you in the background. So then there's no need to go and make sure that receipt's done, then you do the invoice. So definitely helps streamline the process, but then that does also help the agent doing what it's doing because it doesn't have to have something receipted. They've also added some features around. So this was just some screenshots of what I've just gone through there, so we won't do that again. They've added some extra filtering on receipt and shipment lines. So where you've got, so on all documents, you can now filter by your order number or your reference field. On sales and service shipments, they've added external document number, which is quite nice to be able to filter by. And on purchase receipts, we can filter by the vendor order number, vendor shipment number, or the item reference number, which just makes that visibility bit easier to navigate and work through what we need to. So I do quite like those features they're adding, and yeah, there's definitely that strong feeling of they're doing extra development to make that agent better, and they're definitely listening to feedback and making changes there, which is nice. One other thing I did want to quickly show you is something on drop shipments, which is quite nice. So you can now create a purchase order straight from the drop shipment. So if we come back into here, not that one, we need this one. So if I do a sales order, okay. Okay, so I'm just going to pop in my dropship item, which is B21205. And we'll put a quantity of 10 on there. So we can see on the line my little Control-Alt F1, which we should all love. This is marked as drop shipment, which is great. So previously it's quite fiddly, quite back and forth between different pages. I can now just come up here and I can create purchase orders. And then that's just going to give me a summary of what it's creating. I can click OK. It's going to do its thing, and there we go. My purchase order has been created. So it is a lot quicker than I think previously you'd kind of be going to the requisition worksheet, pulling it in, and there's a couple of other different ways that you can manage drop shipments, but it's a nice, quick way to do it, I think, particularly if you've got multiple lines on the order or multiple orders that you need to create those drop shipment purchase orders for.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think is this over to you now, Claudio? Back to you.
Actually, do you want to show the avatars and the posting, the to and from?
Oh, yes. Let me show you that actually while I'm here. Yeah, okay. So I loved this. When I saw it, I thought, oh my gosh, avatars, we can have our pictures. It's not quite avatars like that, but what it does do is give you a real nice a real little picture. So, you know, if we weren't all just users, that would have our initials. I mean, this doesn't give you much in a demo environment, right? Who is user B960? But yeah, so it's quite easy to turn on as well. So just up here in the list, you've got the little option here, and you can just turn that off or on, the created modified by. That appears on all your list pages, so sales orders, items. Yeah, that's
the reason why that's there is not because it looks nice. It's because agents are now going to be doing more manipulation of data and transactions. So it's the way that the software will tell you that an agent has modified something as opposed to a human being. So I think it's actually quite important for how we can control what what's changing, and we know what's happening.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely always been a bit, oh, when was this last modified, and having to go in the record, have a look at it. It just makes it a lot quicker. You can hover over, it gives you a date and a time when it was created and when it was modified. So that is that's quite a nice feature, I think. And we're going to do the posting dates and the posting previews. So in the general ledger setup, you have your allow posting to and from, as we all know. So from and to, we can now do this in a formula, which I think is quite nice. And I do have, which was from Microsoft page, is it going to make me go from the beginning? Oh, yeah, there. So this is on Microsoft Learn, and it will give you the different formulas that you can use. So if you want to do current month only, rolling 30 days. So that is quite nice, rather than having to go in every month and change your posting dates, which I know is a big part of the month end process. You can pop that formula in, and that's always going to be current month, and I now don't need to change it. One thing we did notice when we were discussing this internally is they've not done it for the deferral posting, so maybe that is to come. Let's see, but I think that is quite nice, and it does take a job off your list for month end.
And also just to mention that it's also on the user setup as well. So for the people that want to be granular to users rather than company wide, it's also on user setup as well. That date formula,
yeah,
which
there
is
you
great.
go.
Yep.
That is nice, and it's nice to be able to give finance different permissions to what you'd give someone in customer services, for example.
And it's a massive help for anyone who's got multiple companies, because it's one of the bugbears I've heard in the past about, we've got to go into each company and change the posting setup, for every single company. So that's a great improvement.
And I think the last thing I just wanted to show you is the posting preview type. So I love a preview post. If you're ever not sure, it's just a nice. I love a preview post. Who doesn't? So let me just show you here. So there's two different types of preview posting. You've got your standard and your extended. I would strongly recommend everybody just going for extended, because why wouldn't you? It gives you more information. So I've got it set to extended at the moment. And if I now do a preview post, oh yes, I actually don't mind if it's a day out. There we go, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. I was worried it was going to be in a previous month and then I wouldn't be able to post because I've locked it all down. So you can see here you've got all the GL entries, which is great, but we've also got VAT entries. So it's going to tell me what VAT's going to post, and then other related entries, customer ledger entry, item ledger entry, detailed. I mean, the list is great. We've even got sustainability value entries. And just to show you the difference as to why I think everybody should have it turned on, if I now preview post just on standard, that's what I get. So you can see you've still got your kind of, you have to go clicking in, going through all there, clicking through here. The extended just gives it in such a nice, easy view, and you're less likely to miss things. If you're just looking for something specific, you're just going to click on there and then go, yeah, I'll post it. If it's all in front of you and something doesn't look quite right, it's a lot easier to see and a lot easier to go and make the change before you do your actual post. So yeah, I think it's quite a nice little feature, and again supports a lot of the financial stuff that we're seeing coming in from Microsoft.
Okay, so it's over to me to wrap up. Just before we wrap up, today we are launching our new Bevica knowledge base. So it's had a soft launch for the last month or so, but today's the first time we're telling everyone about it. So this is free and open for anyone to access. It's a nice short little URL. It replaces Freshdesk for the how-to documents and the release notes. Freshdesk is still there for tickets. So if you create tickets for the support desk, you still use Freshdesk for that. And Freshdesk still holds any customer-specific documentation. But for everything else about how the product works, what you can do with the product, it's free and open on our knowledge base. So just to run through it very quickly, we've split it into 4 areas. There's documentation, which is our old how-tos. You can navigate much more easily on this one. Bevica Select is about training and project management and data migration. If you need the API references, we have links here to where those are and how to find them. And then probably quite interesting for the wave update that people are going through at the moment or just starting. We have an area for all the releases for all our products. So for each one, what's been released, what date, and so on. But then in the Business Central Resource Hub, for each wave, we are creating a page with all the information that we think you need to know about a particular wave. So all the things we've been talking about today, it's all listed here with links to learn more about the Microsoft things that are changing, and the release areas will tell you about the Bevica things that we've been releasing. It is AI enabled. So if you click ask, you can ask it a question in kind of a normal language. And on top of that, what we've done is once you've waved, excuse me a second. once you've waved, if you go to a Bevica screen and, for example, hit the show help, which brings up this little help area at the side, or you click the question mark, you learn more about Bevica. It'll take you directly there and ask the question about that particular page. It'll ask AI about that particular page, and it's really good. It comes up with a synopsis or a summary about what that page represents, things to think about, things to look at, all from the knowledge base itself. And then in some places, it takes you to individual pages themselves for you to have a look at. So let's go back to the homepage. So if you can make a note of that, then it's available now because we're not updating Freshdesk anymore with ticket information.
This is massive for companies that want to onboard new staff, right? So because obviously that's one of the massive challenges is to say, well, if you're not sure about this, go to the Bevica knowledge base. Even for the people who are using it all the time, you forget, right? Like, oh, I haven't used that for 6 months, and maybe I just need a refresh.
We are continually keeping up to date, keeping it relevant. So on screen now, you can see more sessions that we're planning for this year. So one's on extended responsibility, quality. The user day will be in October this year. We haven't finalized the exact date yet, but it will be in October. And we've partnered with Fero. There will be integration with Fero in Bevica in the next couple of months. So Fero provide funding for wine merchants and producers. And just finally, if you could take a picture of this on your mobiles and answer the questionnaire, really does help us with Microsoft. They give us a bit of funding to be able to do these webinars. So if you could just go through the questionnaire, it's just a handful of questions there. And as an incentive, we are going to put everyone into a draw where you could get a £50 Amazon voucher or donate some money to charity for all the people that finished the questionnaire. So I realize we've just gone slightly over. So thank you very much for joining. I hope you found it interesting, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.